reflecting on the times when I was in the mess and had no idea how to get out. So it was the only way was deeper until I hit the bedrock. My bedrock moment was on my third, unsuccessful end of relationship. And I had an ex-partner say to me, "Hey, there's 11 indicators of a narcissist." She said, "You meet 9 of them."
Oof.
And I was like, and I've since learned about myself that if I was a narcissist, I actually wouldn't have been able to hear that. So I was able to hear that it had enough truth in there, that there was my stuff that I needed to have a look at. And that was my clunk. That was like, this is not working. I've got to work my way up and out of this mess.
So what helped? How did you do that? Can you give us a bit of an indicator? Did you go on a journey for yourself, or was there a hero's guide or a mentor that appeared with some talisman to
Yoda? Who was Yoda?
Yoda came in the form of a workshop. So, the facilitator of that workshop would probably be the closest character to that. And so Real Education up here in Queensland is an amazing organization. And I've volunteered there for a number of years at their workshops to help transform people's lives afterwards. But I was recommended to their workshops, which is called Real Man. They have Real Man and Real Woman. And 2 different people recommended this workshop. And both of them said to me, "What you're doing is not working for you." One was the ex-partner that I was in the debriefing conversation with. She's like, "You should go and do some work on yourself." And so I took that. I was like, "Thank you." And then someone else told me the same thing. So I was like, "Okay, take the sign. Thank you. I've got it." And talking about refusing the call, the same workshop came to my life 10 years, like 5 years earlier. And I turned it down saying that's for people who are broken and lost. And I'm not either of those things. So I actually refused the call. That was my guide. That was my hero. The mentor came to me and I refused the call, literally. So I went to this workshop, and there's this moment in the workshop where they do dramatic reenactments of the most traumatic events that you've had in your life. They do full trauma, what they call psychodrama. And in that moment, in that story reenactment, the antagonist, my father character, at the end of the reenactment, we're arm in arm and I'm sobbing my eyes out, having just had the most cathartic release and experience and reconciliation. And there were 50 men, and all of them formed a single hug, all bodies interlocked and all carrying and holding, so that if I physically let my entire body go, I actually would have been held. And sobbing my eyes out into the arms of a stranger, surrounded by strangers who had become brothers, my soul made a contract at that point that every man in the world deserves to have that. So, yeah.
So keep going, yeah.
Yeah, that at that moment, that was my purpose. Downloaded. Like, that's it. So I spent the next 2 years doing everything that they would throw at me, all the workshops, retreats, seminars, coachings, just everything I possibly could, working on myself full time. So that was the guide, was men's work as an experience.
I just got really excited thinking about that hug, because a man hug, Jace, let's be honest, hugging our women is wonderful. They're beautiful, they're soft and tender, but a man hug with a man who's happy to be in a hug. Like, I started a bit of a man hug movement. I'm a Sparky by trade, and I've done a lot of construction, been on mining sites, a lot. And, I've come from this world of footy, of the macho man, plus then immersed into a really soft, tender world of the feminine energy and healing sort of side. And I got one foot in each world, and I'm in this space where I love getting around men who, I always love going after the alpha male and just softening him up. And it's always like a goal. You and I are going to hug this out. I even say it to him, we'll be hugging by the end of this sort of thing, and bring him back down and really tenderize him. But I started this a man hug bit of thing going on with one of my mates at work, and it was because we're supposed to have 7 hugs a day or something. We get a natural hit of oxytocin if we hold a hug for 21 seconds. Like, there's a lot of power in a hug. And anyway, we started doing this, and in that environment with men in that world, let being totally politically correct, you know, you're really frowned upon, and it's a shameful act to hug each other. And anyway, one morning I'm hugging this guy. We hugged it out after pre-start. It's like gave us our G up for the day, and one of the dudes was looking at me, and he's just like eyed me off, and I looked over at him and I said, "Scotty, what's going on, mate?" And he goes, "Well, bit GAY for me, mate. I don't, no, not for me." And I said, "Scott, sounds like you're not quite comfortable with yourself, buddy." And he goes, "I think you're right, mate." The next morning, that dude come up to me and he says, "Hey, Alex, can I have one of those hugs?" I was like, "Scott, yes." Bang, hug it in, do it. And like I had about 8 or 9 guys getting into it. We lost the contract soon after that, but I know that feeling also of because of that. And this is the powerful thing, because I brought that to that space. There was actually a fella, and his father-in-law passed away while he was on site. And I noticed he was down one day, and I went up. I was like, "Yeah, Elton, you know, you're right, man." And he was like, "Oh, I'm not." And he just broke down and cried. And I just hugged him right there in the middle of the mine site. People walking past. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this, because the power of being able to be there for a man in that moment, in such an isolated environment, is quite incredible. And I just looked at him. He was crying, and I just let him out, let him have it. And it's truly a gift. I really honor the work you do, man. I love it. I really do. It's quite close to my heart.
Thank you, brother. That's a beautiful story, man. I really honor you. I've been in those environments, and I know what it's like to be a fish out of water, feeling like you're out of place, and to have influenced that, and to have been sure enough in yourself to have actually introduced that into that space. That's amazing. I love that. The men that come to my men's circles are coming to a men's circle. They're not coming to a mine site. So when I tell them that we're going to be having some hugs, it's not out of the realm of possibility. But, you know, there in your high vis, you're a Sparky, here's a Chippy, you know, supposed to be enemies, and, you know, you end up getting them some love. That's incredible, man. Yeah. And I couldn't agree with you more. Love my partners, love the experience of being intimate and hugging with a woman. But there's actually nothing like the ferocious embrace of a full-hearted man hug that breathes into and stays and holds, which is you only get in a very small group of places, and it's in the tribes that I associate with in men's work. It's rare. It's rare in my time of, you know, the span of time that I have in my year. There's only select times that I'm actually really having lots of really healthy man hugs. So it actually lights me up. It really does. It really, really does.
I gotta go find a man. I gotta go find a man to hug. I know there's no men in my house. I gotta go find.
Call a brother over for some for no booty call. I want a man hug. I want a man hug delivery, bro. In Papua New Guinea, this is where I grew up. We had male intimacy was normal, and men's spaces and women's spaces, and sacred men's business and women's business was normal, and men would actually walk down the street holding hands. That's similar in India. So heterosexual masculine intimacy is normal in Indigenous and traditional cultures around the world. It's British Anglo-Saxon culture that we've adopted in the Western world that's actually removed that and created homophobia around that. It's actually really natural and really normal. And I had to unlearn it. I came from that place where you just sit down on a bench and you just rest your arm on a mate. And I did that at boys' school. And he's like, "What are you, and it was like, wow, okay, I'm not in Kansas anymore, Toto. I gotta unlearn this stuff." So yeah, bringing it back, man. Bringing it back one man at a time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually spent time in New Guinea too, on a mine site as well, believe it or not. At Opteti up the top there in the mountains, and they are really primal up in the mountains. They've come from all the little villages all around to work on the mine. And you're right. My very first encounter was watching. There was a really aging population of the nationals that had come to work there, and they would shake hands and then just stand there holding hands, and then they'd walk off holding hands. And I'm going. And there was nothing, it didn't give you a feeling of, this is not right. This was a feeling of, wow, look at that. How amazing is that? You know, it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. But I tell you what, too, guys, and you probably already know this. You give a guy a hug one day, and he'll be always wanting his hug every time you see each other. So there'll be these guys that'll be like that Scotty guy, you know, frozen stiff or like that. But if you'll give him a hug, the next time you see him, he'll be like this, waiting for his hug. And if you don't give it to him for whatever reason, he'll be saying, "Where's my hug, man?" That happens.
Hey, we're all big softies. We're all big babies on the inside.